Hey, nature photographers, it's Lee Hoy once again, and I'm bringing you a topic today that's near and dear to my heart. I realize that throughout quite a few of my prior videos that I have talked about the concept of a visually compelling image, and while I've talked about it just a tiny bit, I thought it might be good to spend an entire video discussing the concept of what I like to call a visually compelling image. What exactly is it? Why is it important? How will we use that in our pursuit of great wildlife, landscape, night sky, and macro images? Well, I hope today, after you finish watching this video, that you will have a much better understanding of your goals when you go out into the field. Whether you're doing landscape, night sky, macro, or wildlife photography, we will have a common goal in mind that will help us focus, contemplate, plan, consider all of those elements that are going to go into a visually compelling image. What is it we're in pursuit of? Let's talk about it. Howdy from West Texas. I'm Lee Hoy, professional nature photographer, and this is my YouTube channel, Lee Hoy Photography. I'm an OM System Ambassador, photography workshop instructor for Wildside Nature Tours and Precision Camera and Video, and contributing author for the Journal of Wildlife Photography. Well, a visually compelling image. Something that I hope by the time you finish this video today, you will have a much stronger, firmer grasp on your goal when you go out in the field. So to help us with today's video, I've prepared a little presentation. So let's take a look, let's hop right over and we'll begin. Well, the first thing we need to talk about is, what is a visually compelling image? And towards that end, here is my basic definition. A visually compelling image is an image that goes beyond a properly sharp and technically / creatively correct exposure. It must have the above as well as a combination of one or more elements such as intriguing or pleasing light, a visually pleasing background, interesting behavior or action, and be compositionally captivating. That are some of the elements that go into a visually compelling image. Now, you know what? We're talking about art. And the reality is that a visually compelling image is going to vary for us as individuals. However, I do believe there are some underlying basic art concepts in which most of us would find true visually compelling images as such. Yes, I know on Facebook we see a lot of crappy images get a ton of likes. And that's just a fact of people often being kind to friends, people who don't know otherwise, who have never been taught certain basic art concepts. But nevertheless, if you actually sat them down and presented them with an image they showed like and said, oh, you're doing awesome, when it's really a crappy image versus a true visually compelling image, I think virtually every time they would be able to properly distinguish it as such. And the reason I talk about this term is to help us move ahead in our progression as nature photographers. What you think is a visually compelling image in your first year of photography will vary dramatically from what you think is a visually compelling image in your 25th year of nature photography. So let's jump right back into our presentation, and this is what I like to call the evolution of the nature photographer. See, in the beginning, your goal is often a sharp image with virtually no other consideration to aspects that define a visually compelling image. For example, in this image, it's a white pelican. You know what? It's a sharp image. It's a generally very boring background. It is centered because my autofocus point would have been centered back then. It's what I like to jokingly call an upskirt shot of a bird. And every now and then you can get a visually compelling shot in such a manner, but it requires very specific conditions in which I find it to be a truly visually compelling image. See, here's a concept I want you to think about. Just because an image is sharp and properly exposed doesn't mean it doesn't suck. Those are the very core elements that are required for an image to be good, but just because both of those elements are there does not make an image good. This is not a good image. Now, again, when I was a beginning photographer, I would have thought it was. But having an image sharp and properly exposed, that's the bare minimum. This is not a visually compelling image. This might be useful in a field guide. The bird is in horrible molt. You know, there's nothing that makes you go, ooh, in that image, okay? Let's take a look at another one that falls under goal number one of the nature photographer. So here's a penguin from Patagonia. It's too far forward in the frame. It's tack sharp. The water has some compelling color in it, but the light on the bird, it's backlit. I could have done some editing to brighten the head, but this is a great example. Yeah, it's sharp, but it's not a visually compelling image. That doesn't make you go ooh. Some people might go ooh because it's a penguin, but they're not going ooh because it is a visually compelling image. And I know what some of you are going to say, well, you could crop it and put it in the proper place. I probably could. I don't think that makes this a visually compelling image, even if I crop it and put it in a better position in the frame. You know, again, it's properly exposed, given the lighting conditions. It is tack sharp, but it is a fairly boring image. Same thing here, okay? Tack sharp, and this was in the Amazon, but the head position is not good. The background is terrible, but again, it's sharp. So I've accomplished first goal, you know, but that's it. If somebody didn't have any other sharp shots from a trip, they might post this. Their friends are going to go ooh and awe. But this doesn't make someone who really understands nature photography go ooh and awe. There's nothing compelling. You know, it might work for a field guide, but you're not really doing much. This isn't an image I would ever share on social media. This is just a plain, basic, boring sky shot of this caracara. Another example, I mean, I took the shot because this is a snake species I'd never seen in the Galapagos Islands before, but let's really assess it. Busy. Now again, tack sharp on the eye, properly exposed, but busy. Very distracting background. The head angle is not good for me. I would like the head angle facing me more. I've got some nice color, some nice detail. It's a high ISO shot. I was able to process it well, but it's just a sharp image. Yeah, it's properly exposed too, but it's not a visually compelling image. Okay? Most time I wouldn't take it. I just took it because, hey, I'm a big snake lover and I'm in the Galapagos and you don't get to see them often, but never would be shared on social media, you know, unless I might be having a request from a friend who's a herper asking me about snakes in the Galapagos. But as we evolve as a nature photographer, we're going to move to the second goal, and that is having a sharp and a properly exposed image. Now, the fun part about beginning nature photographers is at this point, you get a shot like this. This is an ibis down in Brazil, and you are confident, and your friends will tell you that you should shoot for Nat Geo, right? You've accomplished the bare minimum for the beginning point for visually compelling images, which is it's sharp and it's properly exposed, and suddenly you're the best photographer in the world. And by the way, I'm laughing because I was at this place too. If you think I didn't go through this progression, you're nuts. I did. So this is born out of years of experience and my own progression as a nature photographer as well. You know, the morning light is nice, but that color blue of the sky is boring. I mean, it's just boring to me. The branch is ugly. It's got bird crap all over it. I love the wing position on this ibis. I'm not as big a fan of the head position, the shadow coming off the head. You know, it's early morning in Brazil, but the light gets up pretty quick at that time when we're there. You know, the colors shine nicely, but it doesn't make you go ooh. It doesn't make me go ooh. I'll put it like that. You know, I wish it did. If that had a green background, I might even spend a little time on that branch to make it a little prettier, but it's just not a visually compelling image for me. Let's look at some more that fall in this category. I can't remember what the name of this swan is, Corcova, something like that, from Patagonia. And I'm laying down low, so I have a good angle, but the head angle is boring. The light is low light, but the angle of the bird does not lend itself to a visually compelling image. The light is a little bright, even with some editing on the rear. This bird needed to be turned more, but I did expose the bird properly. I didn't blow out the highlights, and I captured as much detail in the shadows as I could. So it's sharp, tack sharp, and properly exposed. Again, probably a field guide image, but nothing else. It's not visually compelling. You got the weird feather blowing up. At least the color of the water is pleasing. Most people never pay attention to the color of water when they're out taking images, but overall, that's not going to get shared. That's not visually compelling. It doesn't make me go ooh. It makes me go, yep, that's that species of swan with the red on the head, you know, the nice white eye line, but nothing makes me get excited about that. Same thing here, okay? this rabbit, beautiful light on the rabbit. The eye looks pretty. The ears are in a good position, but the background's terrible. But it's sharp and it's properly exposed. But the background's kind of distracting, and there's just nothing. Again, proper field guide image, but there's nothing that makes you go ooh, other than the fact that the light is pleasing on this. Okay, but again, not a visually compelling image. I'm not saying it's bad. That doesn't mean, just because an image isn't visually compelling, doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Might be a good image, but we're in pursuit of visually compelling images, which is going to comprise a small percentage of our total shots. Do not ever for a minute think that what I'm telling you is that every image you take should or will be visually compelling. They simply won't. There's no way to do it, okay? But having a goal that we're pursuing is what makes our nature photography get better and better and better. I'm not saying you might not enjoy this image, that you wouldn't enjoy capturing it. I love rabbits. I love photographing rodents. I love a lot of things that the general public doesn't tend to enjoy that much. But that doesn't make it a visually compelling image. Another example. This is oh gosh, I'm forgetting the petrel's name, storm petrel, in the Galapagos, Elliott's, I think. And, properly exposed, tack sharp, boring as crap. Great for field marks, because this one has a white belly where the other species has a darker belly. Wing position is terrible. Look at that. The wing blends in with the head. The right wing looks like it doesn't even exist. The color of the water isn't the sexiest. If the wing position were better, the contrast might be a little better. But again, tack sharp, properly exposed, boring. So goal number 3, what happens when we move beyond capturing tack sharp images that are properly exposed? Well, we're looking at trying to capture sharp, properly exposed, and well composed images. Now we're starting to pay attention to composition. And as you know, I rarely crop any of my images. Well, this first example of a muscovy duck in Brazil, beautiful wing position. Okay, I love when the primaries curl up like that out on the tips of the feather of the wings. I love the head angle in here. The light was early light, so I've got nice lighting across. You'll notice I exposed it well. There's nice detail in the darks, fairly pleasing background, right? And it's well composed. The bird, there's more negative space in front of the bird than behind. The wings are nicely distributed fairly evenly. There's a lot to be said for this image, and I enjoyed taking it, but I don't know that it's a visually compelling. Like I love it, but I don't know that it's visually compelling in the sense that when you're scrolling through Instagram, do you go, oh, wow. When I'm scrolling through, I see a lot of phenomenal landscape images. So when I see a lot of good ones, you go, yeah, oh, that makes me stop and assess and engage and contemplate that image, right? Let's take a look at some more example of images that fall under goal number 3. Here's a Yacare caiman image from Brazil. Love the eyes, beautiful eye right there. This is sharp, it's properly exposed, and it has a fairly pleasing background, okay? The bright green on the right, it'd be nice if it weren't quite so bright, and I could probably play with that in post if this were going to be a true visually compelling. This is a good image. This might even fall under what I call a great image. I mean, I love the reflection of the eye. I don't think I can put it in the great category. There's that green line under it, the bright green on the right. I don't think I can put this in the great. I think it's really, really good because the eye, I love the eye of reptiles like that. I like the low angle. There's a lot to be said for this image. It's not a bad image, but that doesn't make it a visually compelling image. And that's what I hope you're hearing over and over. You might be more than happy to share this image, more than happy to capture this image. I was. This category might at times make easy for me to say. Most people edit that crap out. I figure y'all can just laugh at me with me. This image might get shared on social media. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. Here's another one. And this one would probably go on social media because I like the leg position. I love I call it the sexy looking back pose when animals look back at you. Nice background, fairly nice background. And I'm down low, nice color on this coyote, nice. He has a nice winter pelt. And, it's properly exposed. You know, it's got properly, it's sharp, and it's got a good composition to it, right? So he's placed well in the frame, down low, nice eye contact, and I think this is a good to very good image. Yeah, but I don't think this is as visually compelling as what I'm looking for. Now here's a really interesting condition of haze light from down in Peru. And I really like this image, even though the color, this is a color image, by the way. This has not been converted to black and white. That might surprise you. Again, and this could be a tough exposure for a lot of people and tough to get sharp and tough to compose, but, it falls into that. Well composed, if the bird in front's bill was open and the back bird's wasn't, I don't think this would be as interesting a shot. I like the little light coming through the primaries and the secondaries, but I like having it darker on the birds. Really we're just focusing on the action here and letting the gray haze light on the water and the birds create something of a unique condition for an image. So I really like this image. I really do. And on the right day, it might get close to visually compelling. It's right there, I think, but it's not quite for me. But I really like this image. I like it a lot. It was a very unique photographic opportunity. Now, so goal number 4, what happens when we're going to move past goal number 3? And these all require intentionality, us thinking about it. We move to a sharp, properly exposed, well composed, and a beautifully lit image. Now we're paying attention to all 4 of those elements. They're all going to come together. So this Caracara in Brazil, it was interesting. No other clients in the boat stood up to photograph it. And it was in Brazil, and I'm sure, this bird can be seen here in Texas where I live. But I saw the backlit conditions, and it was banking around. You can see light reflecting off the bugs all around it. It's got I like this image a lot. I love when you get light coming through a bird's, what we call the rectrices and the remiges. You get these different types of feathers, and it really highlights the feathers on the bird, and I love this backlit Caracara. Absolutely love this shot. And it's close to visually compelling, but maybe not quite there for me. Close. So when I'm talking about my visually compelling, to give you an idea, I'm probably talking 3% or less of all my images that when I'm cycling through them, it may even be a smaller percentage. I go, ooh, like this one I stop on and I really enjoy it. So it may fall closer, but it definitely falls into goal number 4, doesn't it? Let's take a look at some more. This is a brown pelican down in the Galapagos, water splashing up, well focused. It's a beautiful image. I've got nice morning light, a great dark background. The eye, I would love for the eye to be a bit more open. I like the head angle, the fact it's preening. I shoot vertical a lot. Love everything about this image. It falls into all 4 of those, right? It's sharp, it's properly exposed, it's well composed, right? And it's got a lot going for it here. This image in Bosque del Apache, New Mexico, beautiful light, right? Well composed, but the reason for me it doesn't quite fall into visually compelling is the branches that are in front of the middle birds. And they're just a little too distracting for me to put that in visually compelling. If that were clear open water, oh my gosh, this would definitely, that'd be fun to put on a wall. That'd be gorgeous. But there's just a little too much busyness in front of the birds for it to fall under visually compelling. In addition, if you want to get real picky, the sandhill crane in the middle, its head is down low, right? And there's a snow goose facing away. It'd be awesome. I look at all these different elements. The colors are beautiful here. It's well exposed, but again, just doesn't quite make visually compelling. Here's a great example of how to use harsh or overhead light to create nice images. Tropic birds, when you're on cliffs or you're shooting down on birds, it gives you often this dark ocean, beautiful background, well exposed, tack sharp. I mean, what a gorgeous bird. But, it's in flight. It's not doing any funky maneuvers. The primaries are curled up on the left. At least both wings are nice and visible. The tail feathers are well spread. It's in a beautiful state of plumage. There's a lot going on that I love in this image. Love dark water like that behind a bird. Anytime you give me a bird that contrasts with a nice dark background, I love that. So I love a lot about this. I love the position of the bird in the frame, but I'm not sure if you're scrolling through Instagram with a lot of bird images that this one makes you stop and really stare at it. Maybe, but I'm not sure. Here we have a wolf stretching in Yellowstone. Again, most people think any photo of a wolf is visually compelling. That's just not the case. I realize getting to photograph wolves are very special, and there's a lot of things I love about this particular image, right? But I would like stronger eye contact to put it truly in visually compelling. I love the stretch. I love the paw up. We've all had pets or dogs and watched animals stretch. It'd been laying down. It's time to get up. It was time to go harass the bison during a bison hunt is what it was. The snow slope comes right up behind it with a lot of plants. I could clone those out if I really wanted to. But again, I love this image. I really like it. I enjoy it. I've looked at it many times. It might make you stop when you're scrolling, maybe because you just don't get to see as many wolf shots. But this certainly isn't the top 1% of my wolf shots that I captured that day. So let's move to goal number 5, right? So now we've got a sharp, properly exposed, well composed, beautifully lit, and a nice background. So now we're paying attention to, sharpness, exposure, composition, the type of light, which includes quality and quantity, as well as direction, and then your background. So here in the Faroe Islands, I've got a puffin coming in, nice, smooth, creamy bokeh. There's a part of me, I love a good bokeh, and then there's a part of me that gets so sick of hearing about photographers that think that's the only kind of shot you can have. It is a blessing and a curse. Yes, some shots require a really nice, or benefited by, a really nice, pleasing bokeh. But sometimes it doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes some things kind of in focus lend itself better to an image than just a pure creamy bokeh. But this image certainly encapsulates goal 5. I love the wing position. I love the eye position. I love it like he's peeking at you as it comes in. Nice overcast light gave us great depth in the feathers. For birds that are all black or all white, at this time of day, had the sun been out, I wouldn't have been photographing unless I was thinking black and white. But that overcast light gave me beautiful, even lighting so that you could really make out a lot of the cool details in that bird. And the placement in the frame, love it. Here's another one of a couple of young cheetahs in Zimbabwe and Zambia. I'm heading back there next year. I go in the green season. I like the green backgrounds better than bone dead, dry brown backgrounds. But here's 2 young cheetah cubs. Love this image. It's got all of those things that we talked about for goal number 5. Why is it not quite visually compelling? I would like stronger eye contact with the photographer. I love this. Ears are alert. I think the crop works well. Maybe crop in a little tighter on the right next time, but beautiful background, gives you a sense of what it's like growing up a cheetah there in Hwanghae National Park. So, nice colors, overcast light, a little bright, little strong light, but overcast, so diffused well. And, no rough shadows on these guys. Again, beautiful, beautiful image. Not sure it's visually compelling. This is a really special image. I love this. It's got all of the elements. What are the odds that all these whales come up basically at once, blow, and it's against a dark background where their blow stands out, but then you've got this great stormy sky. I like this image, and there's this very narrow band of light going across where the whales are, and I really enjoy that about this image. So for me, great image. I really enjoyed it. I have several in this sequence that are various stages of these whales blowing with a band of light and a really cool background. But I don't know if you stop and really stare at this one. Here's one I just captured in Patagonia, which I was grateful, loved having this opportunity. Again, not crop, and you've got an Andean condor, a massive bird. Fortunately, it was on top of this little rise where I could put the mountains behind it. And, I saw another vehicle of photographers come up and they just ran up to the right. All they had was plain sky. Nobody once thought about what would your background be. I actually moved left so that I could get the mountain behind the bird. Nice warm morning light. Frontal light sometimes gives you a little bit of a two-dimensional aspect instead of three. And most people will be ecstatic. This is a really cool shot. I did share this one on social media because it's got a nice catch light in the bird's eye. I love it. Gives you a sense of Patagonia, but visually compelling, not sure. Right on that edge for me. If the bird were taking off and having the mountain in the background, if it were feeding, if it had something in its bill, that might push it there. Or if you had some other crazy lighting situation going on. Here's a very close-up portrait of a vervet monkey in Hwange National Park in Africa. Well, it's got all of those elements. The background is actually the monkey. This is a very tight portrait. And the eye contact, the reflection of the forest in the eyes. I went black and white because I often feel that black and white better communicates the soul or the being of an individual, whether it be human or animal. I love that. I say I'm not a portrait photographer. I am maybe with animals, but I'm not with humans really. But you feel like you and this monkey have a connection when you look at it. This is close to visually compelling, and I put it in this category just because I'll show you a monkey shot I have in an image here in a little bit that I do believe is visually compelling. Now, here we go. Now we're getting to goal 6. This is our pinnacle. A sharp, properly exposed, well composed, beautifully lit, nice background, and a visually compelling image. Here is where we're reaching our creme de la creme. And this shot, we have a capybara, we have a cattle tyrant, and a bug flying around. I knelt down to put myself at the same eye level as the subjects. They were fortunately far enough away from the background to give me a really pleasing background. And I took a lot of shots as this bug was flying around because I was really hoping to get all three in focus. Thank God for 50 frame per second drive mode, SH2, and nice light, properly exposed, tack sharp, so lots of good elements. There's some catch light there in the capybara's eye. This is a visually compelling image, and this image did well in I think I've entered like 6, 7, 8 photo contests in my life. It's just not a big thing. I do it to NAMPA, North American Nature Photography Association, and and I spend some money to do that, and I don't know why. It's one I just enter, probably because a lot of colleagues are involved. And this finished in the top 250 of images, which is a big deal for NAMPA. You're competing against a lot of really good professional, extremely advanced photographers in that. So, this image is really unique. The bug's sharp, and the bird is looking right at him. This cattle tyrant is trying to catch this bug to eat it. So, for me, this is when I stop, I take in, I really delight in this image. Here's a visually compelling image for me because of the way this played out. I did crop this image. I cropped it to this panoramic format because I believe it made the image stronger. So cropping should be to make an image stronger, not trying to save a crappy image. And there is a difference. What I like about this is the bird taking off is right in the middle of the group. And one thing about this, there's 3 birds in the front, there's 3 birds in the back. So it's somewhat symmetrical, but the splashing water on the right creates this feeling of movement. Even though it's not an intentional blur, it's a fast shutter speed. But this is visual balance is awesome. The wing position, the head position on the bird taking off, the depth of field works really well. There's very little overlap on the heads of the other birds, only on the front birds. But if a bill overlapped another one's eye, it would greatly distract from this image. And I think the background works well here. It's a little closer, it's a little more in focus, but I don't mind it in this image. You look at this image, and most people who've been to Bosque know right away where it was captured. This one, I really like this. I enjoy this. I think you stop and take in a lot of different elements. Even the legs of all the other birds, there's almost no overlap. I love that. There's nice space, nice separation. There's nice detail throughout the image. And you have both adult and juvenile birds, so you got varying plumages. There's a lot going on in this image that I really enjoy. This next image is one that I really enjoy. I was in Hwange National Park in Zimbabwe when a lioness who'd been foraging on a kill under a brush with some of her cubs. She walked over to get a drink, and at this point was maybe 12 to 15 feet from me at most. And I really wanted to show what it was like when a lioness was drinking. So I zoomed in super tight. This is not cropped. I was using the 150 to 400. And what I really enjoy about this image, and I knew it was going to be black and white from before pressing the shutter button, the watercolor was kind of an ugly brown. And I knew that black and white would also going to focus on the elements that I really wanted to highlight. And that is, and the reason I feel this is a visually compelling image, all the basics are there, but this tells a really neat story, a story that most people don't get to experience. A close-up look of how a lioness drinks, the curl of the tongue, the tension in the water, the texture in the pelt, the whiskers. I mean, all of these nice features, a few little scars on the nose, not too many. But I find this image is very appealing to me. I look at it quite often. I really enjoy the fact, you know, her chin is wet. I mean, all the different detailed aspects of how she drinks come into play in this image. And again, I really enjoy black and white wildlife photography. You may or may not, but there are certain instances where showing elements of a subject are much better in black and white. So for me, this is for sure a visually compelling image. This next image, you know, my formula for nature photography success is easy for me to say, preparation plus skill times patience equals luck. And this is a circumstance where luck came into play because of preparation, skill, and patience. I was standing on top of a moving yacht in the Galapagos Islands when I saw all these frigate birds soaring overhead. I'm having to lock my arm on the upper railing of the boat so I don't fall over because I am literally looking straight up as the boat moves. And I would say I want to be very safe on that. Well, elements in this image that came together could not be controlled. I would like for you to take a close look at this image and ask yourself, which of any of these birds could you remove and this image still be as powerful? I think the answer is none. You could potentially remove the middle bird and still have a nice image, but I don't think it would be quite as visually appealing and therefore a visually compelling image because the bird in the middle, that dark spot, counteracts the bright sun. Another amazing feature in this image is how the birds basically outline the predominant cloud. There's nice visual balance with the angle of the birds and the contrast of the dark blue sky. Excuse me. I just grilled a ribeye, and man, you know, when us West Texas guys eat a ribeye, we still produce more saliva just thinking about a ribeye. So, you know, these birds, and the fact that there are 4 in the rear, 2 in the front, 1 in the middle, also lends a nice visual balance to this image. You know, I exposed for the birds to be a silhouette because I wanted to preserve the sky. And again, we're on a moving boat. How many elements had to come together just for this image to be just right? I really enjoyed this image. I suppose if I were going to get super picky, the 2 birds on the far right, it'd be nice if their wings were a little flatter. But hey, you know, we're just splitting hairs, I think. I can always find something maybe with an image that I might say, yeah, it'd be nice if. But I still love this image and what it represents. The next one is a pretty straightforward image. But the visual compelling aspect for me is all about the lighting, the head angle, and the color of the subject. This is a male bufflehead duck. And what I love is the dark water and the way the light hits right on the duck's head. This head angle, which was the only head angle of the entire series that I found appealing, provides a nice catch light in the duck's eyes, along with the beautiful iridescence on the cheek and on the area between the lore, the area between the bill and the eye. Goes from that nice blue, green, purplish, pink. What a spectacular bird. Had the light been evenly distributed on the water, it would not be nearly as powerful. But this is what I call emerging light, where a subject is emerging into the light. Got very fortunate. Love this image. Beautiful, beautiful subject. And just delighting in the colors on this bird alone is plenty for this to be a visually compelling image. Here is a bird that was captured intentionally just the way you see it. This was high-speed hummingbird photography. It was photographed against a black acrylic background. I took this image right here in my own backyard, 30 feet from where I sit. And I did the black acrylic, and I do it occasionally because I really believe it helps separate the subject, and it provides some really nice contrast, and your focus is straight on the subject by itself. This is a Rufous hummingbird, and the colors against the black are outstanding. I love the body position. I have looked at this image many times over. I suppose if I were going to nitpick it, it'd be awesome if the other tail feathers were equally spread, but the bird is banking. The wing, yeah, it'd be nice if the upper wing were at the same level as the lower wing. Those are all things that if I could change it, sure, I'd like that. But nevertheless, the color, the head angle, the catch light, everything about this image just screams visually compelling to me. It's one of my all-time favorite hummingbird images. And again, I did not Photoshop a black background into this image. I took the picture exactly as you see it using flash. When I'm using a black background, I will point a flash or two at the back of the bird to help give separation from the black background. Now, I put in an image of a flock because just because we capture a big, a large number of subjects at once, whether it be a herd, a flock, a school, fish, whatever it might be, doesn't make it necessarily visually compelling image. You still need a place for the eye to start and stop as it peruses the image. This flock of snow geese in Bosque del Apache Wildlife Refuge in New Mexico provides a great example for what I find to be a visually compelling image of a flock. Now, I love the exposure on this image. Sharpness is right where it needs to be, but let's look at why, in particular, I believe this is a visually compelling image. And it has to do with the golden spiral, which is an element of composition. If you look at this whole image, the darkest area of the image is right in here, okay, overall. In terms of density, visual density, we see it right here. And if you follow the golden spiral, it would go like this, okay? And it's going to come back to this spot right here and then follow the flock out, okay? This is a very nice compositional element right here. And it is that my eye goes right here, it follows the darkest areas around and comes up here. So there's a nice way for the eye to move through this image, making it a very visually appealing image. And the reason I find it visually compelling is the backlight. Some of the wings have the translucence as the light passes through. Others are in complete shade created by the flock. You've got the water splashing up. We're not worried about are we clipping birds at the edges of the frame, because the density of birds throughout the image is enough where your eye isn't drawn to any one particular spot regarding that. I love this image. I find it visually compelling, and I think it's an image that stands up on its own. Now, I told you I was going to show an example of an basically upskirt shot of a bird that I do find very visually compelling, and that is this image of a roseate spoonbill that I shot almost directly overhead in St. Augustine, Florida. What I like about this, normally a white background to me, yeah, but this is a high-key shot, and you want a nice blown-out background for a high-key shot, but what works is the way the light comes through the secondaries and the primary feathers in the wings and the rectrices in the tail. Those are the tail feathers. And you look at that color, nice exposure on the bottom of the bird, making sure I properly expose the bird, a completely white background. I'm not worried about the clipped wings because the visual balance in this particular image carries through. In fact, I'll be honest, I don't think this is as powerful an image if all the wings are shown. This is much more artsy in some respects than maybe some other images, and I love this image. Nice contrast with the dark legs, the head against the body. You can really make out a lot of details of this bird. It's almost like a color X-ray in a way, and I think I find that very visually appealing. But again, there's still good visual balance. The negative space is appropriate, and this will look beautiful on an acrylic print. I told you I had about another photo of a monkey. Obviously, this is a baboon, not really a monkey in that sense, but here's again an example where black and white came through to bolster a portrait shot of this olive baboon in Huengue National Park. If you look at this image, it was a standard portrait when he wasn't grimacing. I probably took 50 to 200 shots. I don't remember off the top of my head of this particular male baboon. I saw a lot of clients raise their cameras, take a few shots, and they were done. The reality is this grimace was only found in 3 of the images out of all of them I took because it was fleeting. So this is one of those examples where, thank God for 50 frames per second and for multiple images. And I didn't even know I'd captured it until I pulled the images up in my laptop later. And looking through, this is my favorite, where the lip just has that nice little grimace showing the teeth. The eyes, in post-processing, I brightened the eyes a little bit to make them a little more dominant, and then darkened the background to make him really stand out. And I love this image. This has been on my iPhone wallpaper many times, and I love this image. This is one of my favorites of any primate that I've ever taken. And that grimace, it's the expression, it's the mood, it's the emotion, it's the contrast in the image, the detail in his hair is just spectacular to me. So I find this to be very visually compelling. And there you go. Those are what I consider visually compelling images. I hope that every time you go out, that becomes your goal. Now remember, there's goal 1 through goal 5, and you're going to progress through those. And every time you go out, you're going to have some crappy shots, you're going to have some good shots, you might have some great shots, and hopefully you'll have at least one visually compelling image. Remember, it's a very small percentage of our overall images, but that is the end goal. That's what we want to pursue. That's where we want to go to. And I want to thank y'all for watching my videos. You notice I don't use inflammatory headlines or clickbait. I try to provide good educational material. And in like manner, I hope some of you might join me in the field someday on one of my workshops offered through Wildside Nature Tours or Precision Camera. Maybe join my online OM System mentorship program. I have lots of opportunities. I'll be doing OM System only workshops as well. I've got multiples on the website now. I'm doing a tiger safari in India, Zimbabwe and Zambia again in the green season. Lots of great chances for you to join me in the field where we can talk about the technical and the creative side and the equipment side and patience and luck and how that all comes together. I really do thank you for being a part of my online community. I hope you find this video beneficial. What I would like to hear from you is, were any of my visually compelling shots that I considered such not so visually compelling to you? Were there some that you thought were more visually compelling that I didn't? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have a great day. Don't forget to get out and get some great shots. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.